Welcome to the Fairy Whispering podcast. I'm Claire Casely, and I'm here today with a wonderful guest called Loren Hughes. And Loren likes exploring lost landscapes, mysterious realms, and mythology and folklore, myth and magic. Welcome, Loren, to the Fairy
Thank
Whispering.
you.
And I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've recently connected, haven't we, on social media?
Right. Yeah, that's right.
I heard your wonderful interview with Joe Hickey Hall on modern sightings.
Yeah.
And there was so much that you were talking about that, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing, resonating. So welcome, looking forward to speaking with you, and just wondering where to start. Where would you like to?
Joe did a fabulous podcast. It's probably too much to talk about, and she managed it brilliantly. Well, she managed me brilliantly, so that was fantastic. Kudos to Joe and her fabulous podcast that she does. So I'm really happy to be with you and expanding on a few things for you.
Yes, yeah.
Just take the first thing out of your mind's eye that you think of and just spill it, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so shall we start with traveling in other realms, because that's
Can do, yes.
That kind of links into other things I was hoping to talk about. You mentioned in the interview I heard you with Joe talking about traveling in the other world.
Yes.
And this is something I resonate with, and we were just talking about before we started recording. So could you talk about any of those journeys and your experiences of going into the other world?
Sure, no problem. I'm just going to sort of put a bit of a foundation down with that for people that aren't familiar with this.
Sure.
There's far more to a human being than just the physical aspects of ourselves. If we were just our physical aspects, we'd just be a handful of chemicals in a bucket of water, and that would be it. But we're clearly not. Yeah. So people that are interested in the esoteric, in higher forms of magic, witchcraft, shamanism, even druidry, first thing that they're acknowledging is that there's more to the human spirit than just the physical, that we actually have a spirit that lives inside us. That spirit, some people believe, reincarnates. Other people struggle with that one. Personally, I believe in reincarnation. I think that it makes perfect sense that we reincarnate from time to time. Just to lay a little bit of a foundation from sort of very general sort of mystery school aspect. And also taking some references from druidry, modern druidry. Not a human being acknowledged as basically being triadic in nature. We've got the physical, we've got the psychic aspect, and we've got what we call the spiritual aspect, or the soul in us. The psychic aspect is probably the most interesting, because the psychic part of ourselves, our psychic body and our psychic mind and our psychic energies, is the medium that's able to travel between the purely physical and the higher realms that you might call the spiritual, the sacred, or just the higher worlds. Yeah, so it kind of it's sort of, if I say plastic in nature, I mean that with like a small p, in that it's fluid, it's moldable in terms of its energies, the psychic self. So you can tune in to a higher with it, you can tune into lower. So it's like, it's your personal ability to, this allows you to travel between the worlds. Yeah. So one of the things that the Celts and the Druids seem to have a really good understanding of, as do shaman and other mystery traditions, is that it's possible for you to consciously and knowingly, with some training, to be able to send your mind, your consciousness into this other world, to contact other higher beings, other spiritual beings, to see what's going on there. To a certain extent, this is the basis in contemporary culture of remote viewing, and it's possible to access these other worlds. Yeah. So if you're doing any sort of serious balanced psychic training through whatever system you study, or whether you're following your intuition, you will eventually realize, just by allowing yourself to be open to that possibility and just paying attention to the impressions that come to your mind. In actual fact, you're developing ESP. You're picking up things not that are going to happen in different points in time, different physical points on the earth, and also the other realms. So I've done a lot of work with that, like a lot of people have. And from time to time, I'm sure like your good self, you will have those moments of lucidity. And sometimes you can consciously realize that. You can sit down and be like just tuned in and have a conscious realization of something the psychic part of yourself is picking up. But also, the most common way to remember, though, or experience those impressions that your psychic self has picked up is through your dreams.
Yeah.
So we get into lucid dreaming. Lucid dream is a form of dreaming true. Most dreams that we have just have the life and consciousness of our outer mind. It has the life and consciousness of a dream. But when you begin to experience lucid dreaming, you suddenly become aware of there is a difference between the two. Yeah, so you'll frequently find that people will say, oh, I was having this dream, and suddenly I woke up in the dream, knew that I was asleep and dreaming, but I was still in a dream. Then all of a sudden, like the regular dream ended, and I had this feeling that it was like a lucid dream, and I was in another place talking to these people, seeing these things happening, but they knew it was a lucid dream. So they come back, wake up, recollect it, and then lo and behold, at some point in the future, they have the experience of what they dreamt about.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah. So they discovered the lucid dream, in actual fact, was more of a dreaming true than just that you were dreaming about something that was just processing through your mind, if that makes sense.
Yes, I understand this because I've experienced this myself. So
yes, thought you had.
That kind of especially in the lead up to 2020.
Yes.
Those events, I had some very, very vivid lucid dreams.
Right. Right.
Sometimes on the same day, I then
that makes sense. Yeah.
Experience what I'd experienced in the dream aspects of it. So I get that.
The other thing you'll notice with the way I put it all under the term consciousness. Yeah. So we are consciousness in a body. So our consciousness has layers, if you like. It's got a spectrum. Yeah. And one thing I've noticed, I don't know if you has, and it can be quite interesting. There are times when you seem to be able to be more lucid or have more lucid dream experiences than others. And one of the times that keeps coming up for people, and this is, other people will write about this, other people have recorded this and worked with it. For some reason, wherever you are in the world, when it is the equivalent of between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., it's kind of like a window time. And you'll find that people will have lucid dreams more often in that time, or they'll wake up and realize they feel like there's a presence in the house, or they get out of bed and they might see like a ghost, or have a fairy experience, or see a UFO, or think they've seen a UFO or something like that. It's kind of that time frame sort of enhances that aspect of ourselves. Whether it's, some people say it's because the electromagnetism on the earth, we're on the furthest side of the earth from the sun, so it kind of changes the vibrations. Some people say it's because the majority of people around you are asleep, so therefore all the sort of the psychic noise that we generate as we're awake and conscious is kind of lessened. I don't know. That's down to like individuals sort of find out for themselves, I guess, experiment with. Certainly don't take anything I say as absolute truth. I always say question everything, question anything that I say to people. All I can do is give you some interesting starting points to start your own journey with and find out for yourself.
Yeah, and another aspect of that is what's going on in the body as well.
Right. That's right.
The hormonal stuff that's going on, and the pineal gland.
That's right. Yeah.
Is more activated at that time as well.
Did you, if I can ask you some questions, but I think people might find helpful. When you have your lucid dreams, do you find that they're sort of like ESP? Do you dream of future events, or do you sometimes you just get helpful, useful information in a dream that you think, well, actually, there's something I can take away from that, and it helps me doing something?
It's a combination. Sometimes it's useful information. So might encounter a being that gives me a very brief message,
Yes.
insights,
Yeah.
to help me to think in a different way.
Yeah. Yes.
Or it will be something that's in the other world that's also linking to this world, to
Yes, that makes sense. Yes.
real places in this world,
Yes.
that I'm seeing in the other world, the equivalent in the other world.
Yes. As above, so below.
Yeah. So I just think some people listening that haven't experienced this, they might want an example. So a very brief example I can give is, and I've spoken about this before, where this was August 2019, I think.
Right.
And night before, I dreamt of, or in the early hours of the morning, I'd had a lucid dream.
Right.
I'd gone to a oak tree with my fairy guide, and there's a little
right. Yes.
the tree. She took me through. This is a very brief synopsis.
Yeah, that's all right. That's fine.
She activated my forehead and said, "Oh,
Right.
several shafts in the forehead,"
Yes.
and lit them up. And then all the beings, the fairy beings that were there, all had this symbol on their forehead,
Right.
like a rune,
Yes. Yes.
Agas, which represents the dawn and awakening.
I know that rune. Yes.
New beginnings.
Yes.
I didn't know it was a rune at the time, and subsequently shared it with someone. They said, "Oh, that's what it is."
Yes.
So the next morning, I got up, was making coffee in the kitchen. My son came downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Says, "Gosh, he's very sensitive." But anyway, he came down. And I said, "Oh, Ethan, what is that on your forehead?"
Yes.
And he had this symbol imprinted on his forehead, like,
yes, I believe for that.
It had been, I don't know, just like like an impression.
Yes.
Like he'd slept on
Yes.
stuff, you know,
Yes.
gradually faded.
Yeah.
And then both my kids said they wanted to go to the specific park that day.
Right.
Sort of photo of his forehead.
Right.
And we went to the park, and first thing I saw walking into this park, at the bottom of this tree, was this doorway, like a natural doorway.
Oh, wow.
In the bottom of this door,
Mm-hmm.
of this oak tree.
Yes.
So that's just an example of, for anyone listening, what
Yes.
about this, how this can happen once you get into this. And that happened because I was going through a period of intensive psychic development. I was focusing on developing my clairvoyance.
Yes, that makes sense. Yes.
And that led to these experiences. So yeah, it's something you have to work on, I think.
I'm just going to add a couple of interesting footnotes to what you just said. You said that about the rune was to like sunrise awakening there on the third eye.
Yeah.
In the Great Pyramid of Khufu in Egypt,
yes,
a lot of the mystery schools regarded as it was a temple of initiation, basically.
Okay.
So the idea being that it was never built, that particular Great Pyramid was never built as a tomb. It was actually, it was a symbolic hall of initiation. It was a place that gathered energies and helped you an initiate unfold that was in the mystery school. So there was part of their spiritual unfoldment. And when you go into the Great Pyramid, you go into the entrance, you go down, and then you start this long climb up in this huge gallery called the Grand Gallery, where it's a vaulted ceiling and it opens up and it's really high. And eventually you get to the top step, and then you're in front of the King's Chamber, which has a sarcophagus in it. It's important. And you have to go into that King's Chamber, you then have to crawl on all fours, go into this narrow space, and you go under 3 giant granite leaves. Right. And when you stand in front of the last granite leaf, if you stand up, there's the Egyptian hieroglyph or symbol there for sunrise, and it's at the exact place of the average height of a man and woman for where the third eye is.
Oh,
I thought that was really interesting that you were seeing a rune for the third eye sunrise.
wow. Oh my gosh, this just gets, do you know, the more people I speak about this, the more
Yes,
information
yeah,
comes through.
yeah,
That's just amazing. I
yeah,
have been to the Great Pyramid.
yeah.
It's before my children were born.
Right.
2000 and it was early 2006. Yeah,
Wow.
about
Wow.
January 2006.
Yeah.
They were born in the
Yes.
um, September. So, unbeknownst to me, I was carrying them.
Oh, wow.
So I was in Egypt. Yeah.
Fabulous.
So we'd been to the Great Pyramid.
That's brilliant. That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh my gosh. I'm just a bit blown away by what you've just told me now. I'm going
A part of the mystery school thing was when you were an initiate and you were taken to the king's chamber, you were then left in the sarcophagus overnight for like a sort of symbolic death of the ego.
yeah.
And the vibrations that this place creates are like higher vibrations that would retune the physical glands in the body, the psychic centers, allowing you to experience that sense of illumination.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Wow. Gosh, I didn't know that. That's thanks for sharing. Blown
only
away.
because you've got various characters in history that would have spent the night there. Even Napoleon managed to spend the night there in the Great Pyramid.
Yeah.
He was very esoteric orientated and certainly picked up on the energies there.
Wow. So, I mean, this experience I had was part of an initiatory
Yes, exactly. Yes,
thing. And
yes,
it's like everything, a
yes,
series of
yes.
meditations, journeys I was
Yeah,
going
I'm with you. Yes,
was like initiatory experiences. Yeah.
yes.
And I spoke to Jeremy Garner recently, the
Right,
friend of mine that told me about the map, the fairy map.
right.
And we spoke because he heard me talking about this rune on Joe's podcast when she,
Okay. Yes.
and he said, "Oh my gosh, Claire, did you realize that one of my album covers has that rune on it?"
Oh, wow.
And he said it's like that rune is a gateway into the fairy realm.
Yes.
So I said, no, I didn't realize that, and now you've just added another layer to this as well. But yeah, he said, oh, he was explaining the 4 different directions and how
Yes.
this rune shows up on one of the tarot cards. I think it's the Wheel of Fate it's on.
Yes. Yes, it does.
It's
Yes. Depending on the deck you've got,
yeah,
it does. Yes.
yeah. So I'd love to hear any of your experiences of crossing into the other world.
Well, I've got a story that I like to tell people.
Yeah,
It was experimenting with astral projection,
yeah.
which is a long, slow process. So
Mm,
part of astral projection is sometimes that you're tuning up to the different layers of the psychic realms. The higher up the vibrations you go, or interesting things that you see, you're sort of you were making contact with these other worlds. It's something that I believe from some of the vague references that we've seen in surviving druidic writings and some of the things that the Romans said about the Druids. They understood doing that themselves. It's sort of like a primal tradition.
yeah.
So that would make sense. The shaman do it, other cultures do it. They have these experiences one way or another. They record it, but if you read all these different accounts, they're all pointing towards the same thing. So you sort of see although written through different cultural filters, they're actually describing the same things about what these journeys in consciousness. Yeah, and one of the first things that stood out to me was I was having a lucid dream. I woke up in a dream, knew I was dreaming, and you could feel that the dream ended. And it was a very lucid dream. Whether it was an astral projection or not, I didn't know at the time, but there was this sensation of coming out of the body, and you could sort of see the body on the bed. And it was like, oh, okay, maybe this is a dream. Maybe this is a bit realer than I like to imagine, whatever. And he came out the body, went outside. And I've always loved the stars. Grown up with the stars, I always find the stars an amazing place to be underneath the stars, looking at the stars. They're quite magical. And I found myself outside looking at the stars, and the constellation of Orion was rising. So I was looking at Orion, and in one particular, around one of the particular stars in Orion, the colors are very intense. But if you're sort of lucid dreaming, if you're seeing psychic colors, the colors are very intense. They're often blues and shades of colors that you don't normally see with the physical eyes.
Yeah.
And this, looking at this one particular star or area in Orion, there was this big arc of deep red light around it, and it quite fascinated me. I thought, well, that's not there. I've never seen that on a map or whatever, because I know the stars, like the star atlas, really well. I know the stars by sight. I thought, that's strange, and I watched this for quite a while. The next thing I know, obviously, I'd woken up, and I made some little notes about this, and I went to every star atlas and an astronomy book I could find, and there was nothing about this big arc of deep red around this star. And then about 5 years later, it came out in the astronomy magazine that their new infrared telescope had discovered exactly where I saw it was this big infrared light nebula around this star. So from that experience, I was able to see something that was really there that I could. Often people say, oh yeah, but you must have read it somewhere, you must have seen it somewhere and forgot about it, and it was your mind tricking you. Well, nobody knew that existed.
No, so this knowledge, it's
Yeah,
it's like it's going into that timeless place, isn't it?
yes, that's it. Yes, yes,
you're accessing
yes,
all times at once.
yes,
Past, future,
yes,
present doesn't exist. So
that's right.
yeah. So wow. And how far ahead in time did you?
About 5 years before it
5
came out.
years.
Yeah.
And these experiences in our time, it's like fairy time as well. I've spoken to other people about this. They only make sense in our time over these big periods of time.
Yes.
You look back, you think, oh, I don't really know what that was about. And a couple of years later, you'll speak to someone.
Yes.
Something will
Yes.
on in the news, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, so that's what that was about. But it's kind of drip fed to us.
Yes.
Or maybe it's just because our time.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. What's your
sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I was just wondering what your understanding of that was. This kind of, do you think that we are given this information slowly because they don't want to, whoever they are, don't want to give it to us all at once, or it's just because we're on this different time line or experiencing time
I would say, in all honesty, it's a combination of both.
Right.
Because in any other dimension, it's as if basically on the psychic realm, time doesn't exist in the way we experience it here. What we're actually experiencing here is like a duration of consciousness. It's how long our consciousness thinks it takes time to perceive things. And I do think that sometimes there's our own deeper aspects of our own consciousness. I think even Jung got towards this. It's almost like a self-regulating system. It won't let the conscious mind be overwhelmed with too much information. Because on that plane of existence, information is more immediate and it's more interconnected. So it understands that if we are processing that, we're processing it through the analytical part of the brain as opposed to the intuitive part of the brain.
Yes.
So it slows it down so we can analytically deal with it.
Yeah. And also, I mean, because we're all living these human lives.
Yes. Yes.
None of us are living like sages or monks or
Yes.
nuns of old.
Yes. Exactly.
You know, I mean, I've had, yeah, honestly, Loren, I've had a week or so to myself while my children have
Yes.
dads. And in that time, I thought, great, I'm just going to have some time to myself. And you end up catching up on other things.
Yes. Yes.
It's very difficult to get this kind of sage-like existence where you just completely kind of
Yes.
able to experience these things all the time, isn't it? So
Yes.
I mean, do you find this that your experiences of these worlds come and go,
Yes.
the intensity
Oh yeah.
depending on what's going on in
Absolutely.
your life?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely. It's got an ebb and a flow. There's more porous aspects to your life which you seem to be able to see this other world. Again,
Mm.
the Celts and the Druids called it. So yeah, it does. It comes and goes. It's got ebbs and flows. Sometimes you'll be able to go through really lucid couple of years with things, and suddenly there'll be nothing for years and years and years. And it's almost like when it comes back, it's come up on a spiral. It's come up on the next slightly higher level.
Do you find that disconcerting? Because I find that disconcerting at times when nothing's happening, and I think, oh, I've not had any sort of otherworldly experiences for a while.
It is. It is. Yes. I mean, I probably don't now
Mm,
because I'm a lot older and got used to it. But
yeah.
initially, yes, I think it can be disconcerting. Yeah, I think everybody at various points will find it disconcerting.
Mm, yeah. Thank you. That's reassuring.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing gone wrong. You know, there's
Oh,
not, there's not a part broke off the great cosmic all somewhere. You haven't broken anything. You're fine. Everything's all right.
that's good. I'm sure other people will find that reassuring as well.
Yeah, they do. Everybody thinks that. They think, what have I done wrong? Have I broken something? Is there something wrong with me? What's happened?
Yeah, I'm sure anyone in human history to think, oh gosh. But on the other side of that, there's perhaps people that aren't having these experiences yet,
Yes,
or
yes,
just dipping their toes into them. That's
yes,
some people
yes,
that are just dipping their toes in, and
yes,
it's from my experience, and that's love to hear your experience of this as well. I don't think there's any sort of, I mean, I've done loads of courses, I've read lots of books. I think it's a lot of it is about being receptive
yes,
to and having that intention, isn't it? A lot
yes,
of that
yes,
intention that you want
yes,
to engage with these
yes,
things.
yes.
Mm.
I mean, it will come in time, but part of obviously the way we have to package information, the way we put information together, and it's the age old difference between the right brain and the left brain. You know, one side is analytical and kind of expects everything now and expects it all in like a sequence, like the analytical part of the brain thinks, well, if I press a button, shouldn't this be happening? Whereas the intuitive side of the brain is more connected to everything. It has a sense of unity. It's kind of perceives space and time completely differently. And it's like, no, man, just chill out. Just go with the flow. And the other side looks like, what are you talking about, hippie? You know, like a little bit of a war going on between the two.
Yeah. Um,
And because what the analytical part of the brain does, when it finds gaps in its information, it can't help itself. It's almost like a pathological liar. It has to invent things to fill those gaps with. And
yeah.
the connected, the sort of the cosmic side of your brain go, what are you doing that for, man? Just relax. It's a flow. Shut up, baby.
Yeah. That's a really good illustration of what goes on in my head. Thanks, Laura.
In my head, just the same.
Oh, I have you got anything else to say about the otherworldly traveling before we
Um,
move on?
there's always lots to say, and I've always got
Yeah.
far too much to say. I'd say we'll draw that one to a close now, give people a chance to sort of think about that and digest that. We can always do another podcast.
That's it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing, talking about stepping into other worlds or other worlds stepping into ours. Now, I'm an artist. I know I've seen some of your art. I know you're a very, very good artist. I've seen some of your lovely drawings online. And there's something you mentioned in your chat with Joe about a fairy painting. And I would you mind sharing that?
No problem. No problem. Yeah, no problem.
I just find it fascinating with the aspect we've just been talking about, interacting with other worlds, but then this is an example of another world interacting with us.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I'll let you tell the story.
Right. First off, my mother had me quite late in life. All right. So she was nearly 40. And I'm being in my 60s. That then places my mother as a little girl in the 1920s. So we're going back quite a long period of time. Yeah. And she was an only child, and her mother and father lived in London. And they moved to this somewhat of a dark, but all right, terraced house. And they were trying to brighten it up. And my mother was a little girl, and she had a room that she slept in with her cot and some toys in it. And then at night time, they'd have like a little oil lamp to light the room. Because again, this was the 1920s. People didn't always use loads of electricity and stuff. So, or if they didn't always have it literally. So she'd have like a little lamp in her room, and she was probably about 2.5. I'm guessing this is the stories that my family has told me. Right, I can't verify this. I don't know how true this is, but their reactions over the years seemed to me, and the stories were consistent from whoever you spoke to about it. To me, it came across as authentic. Something did happen, and this is probably what happened. I'm pretty convinced it's 100% what happened, because I've got the story from my mum and various other family members, some of which will even later in life were still disturbed by it. So you see that they were really troubled by this. Yeah. So from my point of view, I'm just relating what is the story in the family. And as far as I know, and I'm convinced that it was true anyway, but obviously it's up to people to make their own mind up. But it's an interesting story, so I'm offering it for what it's worth.
Yeah, sure.
If you go back to London, it's probably the latest 1920s, and it's a dark sort of autumn evening, and my granddad was on his way home from the office where he worked as a draftsman, and he had a big wrapped up painting under his arm that he was all excited about. And apparently he'd been left a painting by a relative that had passed on. I think they maybe left him a little bit of money, but they'd left him this painting. And when they got home, him and his wife unwrapped the painting. I think it might have been a watercolor. I never really sort of got out from anyone what kind of painting it was. It was probably a watercolor framed. I know it was in a frame. And it was a painting of fairies. Fairies in like a little forest scene. And the fairies had bright colors on, and they seemed to be playing musical instruments and just doing sort of very Victorian sort of view of what fairies did. Whether it was like originally like a children's book illustration or just a painting that somebody had done, I don't know. But they were quite amazed with this painting, because it was very detailed, very finely painted by somebody who obviously knew what they were doing. So they decided that would be perfect to go in my mother's room. So they placed it in the room. They took her upstairs, placed it in the room over the mantelpiece, and there was the little oil lamp there burning so she could see the fairy painting. She was entranced by it, amazed, and she loved that. And she was eventually lying down to go to sleep when she thought she could see something fly around the room. So she sat up in bed and looked at the painting, and she was thinking that it's different in some way. What's different about it? She suddenly realised 3 of the fairies were missing from the painting. And And when she looked round in the room, the 3 of the fairies were now 3D real fairies, and they were sitting on the end of her bed looking at her. And of course, then she looked at the painting, the rest of the fairies began to peel off the painting, becoming alive, dancing and giggling and playing little musical instruments along the mantelpiece and dancing and flying around the room. At this point, my mum thought that was fantastic. And then all of a sudden she was like thinking, no, hang on, this is frightening me. So she started screaming and screaming and screaming for her mum and dad. Her mum and dad came running upstairs, and as they opened the door, the fairies went back to the painting, and there was like nothing there. So they spoke to her and said, oh, it's probably just a dream. You're only little, you're probably half awake, half asleep. You're dreaming, it's all right, it's fine, it's fine. So she went to sleep. And then the next night, everything was all right. And I believe the story goes a few nights later, she wakes up, the same thing. The fairies are coming out of the painting, dancing around the room. So she screams and she screams, and they come running up. As they come in the door, as the door handle turns, the fairies go back to the painting. At this point, this happened a few more times, with her. So she's getting quite scared, and they're going, look, it's just a dream. You're only little, come on, be sensible about this. And they were sort of almost lightly telling her off to try and stop her being frightened. So she was sort of struggling with this, and then eventually things came to a head one night where she sees the fairies come out of the painting. They're flying around the room, so she's shouting for her dad, and her dad comes running in, and he sees the fairies. And he was absolutely terrified. And then her mum comes running in, and she sees the fairies, and they see them all fly back into the painting. So absolutely terrified. Although nothing bad ever happened, my grandparents took the painting out of the room, took it downstairs, wrapped it up and put it in the cupboard under the stairs. Obviously there's slightly different versions of what they did with it from the family, so I'm sort of just running with the general consensus of elements that I was told that happened. Sometimes there's slight little variations. Some people said they put it in the sideboard, some people said they put it in the cupboard under the stairs. You get what I'm saying? Just the variations aren't dramatic, it's just little details with it. So eventually my grandmother decided that the painting was just too spooky. There was apparently other things had happened when it was in the cupboard under the stairs. Things. So she one day took the painting out into the garden, took it off the frame and burned it, and got rid of it.
It's that's just an amazing story, but I can understand from the adults that it's scaring our daughter and strange things are happening, and that's when the fear kicks in, isn't it? Something that is, listening to the story now, all these years ahead, you think, oh gosh, that's a really magic.
I would have kept the painting. I'm sure you would have done.
I've been there, sort of like watching it every night.
I mean, I think the final straw with my grandmother was she was very superstitiously afraid of these things, and she had quite a religious background. And the final straw was hers, that she absolutely insisted that she looked out of the garden window one day and saw this male figure with a beard and long hair, wearing kind of like brightly coloured robe clothes, floating in the garden looking at her, which she presumed was Jesus, but it could have been a fairy.
We don't know.
And that's when she just flipped out and decided to get rid of the painting, which she did.
Gosh.
However, there's a payoff from this. If about 3 or 4 years further down the line, my mother was out with my grandmother, and they were going somewhere sort of late on a summer's afternoon. They had to walk through this park, and they were talking. My mother was trying to talk about the fairy painting to her mother.
Oh, right.
The things that she'd seen, and her mother was going, oh, I do believe in fairies and the fae, and there's like spirits from other worlds and things like that. And as they're walking through this particular part of the park, down this pathway, which was well used by people, they come to this turn in the path where it goes through these trees, and they saw this man who was laughing and chattering to himself, behaving in quite a sort of demented, berserk way. And he had a knife, and he's stabbing into the ground, and he's stabbing this hole in the ground. And like, my mother and her mother was like, oh, he looks quite dangerous, it's bad energy. And my grandma grabbed my mother's hand and said, come on, we'll just walk past him quickly. And as they went to walk past, this man stepped out of the bushes, who was again long hair, long like robes on, sort of almost medieval looking robes. And he said, he put his hands up and he said, please stop, ladies. He said, I want you both to go back down the path as quickly as you can and don't look back. Go now. Go, go, go. So they went, and they went as fast as they could down this path. And eventually they looked back and they could see this figure standing there when the guy with the knife had tried to follow them down the path, but he was standing like looking like that, as if he was looking at this figure. So they disappeared, went off. There's a follow-on to this.
Yeah, carry on.
A few days later, they're walking past the station. In those days, there was paper sellers at the station. Read all about it, read all about it. Here's the headlines on whatever had happened. And there'd been a murder in the park in London, that exact park. And the guy that they'd seen about an hour later had stabbed to death a mother and a child that were walking down that path.
Oh, gosh.
So that always stayed with both my grandmother and my mother. This mysterious, ethereal figure had turned up and stopped them.
Oh, gosh, that's so tragic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this figure sounds like, was a guardian spirit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's that brings up so many questions, doesn't it? Because
sorry about that. Probably shouldn't have told you that by now.
That's fine. This guardian figure was there to protect your grandmother and great grandmother.
Yes.
Right?
No, my mother and grandmother.
Your mother and
her mum. My mother and her mum.
Her mum. And then this murder happens.
Yes.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, what it was, whether your mother's and grandmother are being protected.
Yes.
Because they have some purpose.
Yeah, true. Yeah, could be. Yeah.
Who knows why these things happen? But
yes,
this figure coming along. I mean, what's your feeling about this figure? Do you think it's an ancestor or guardian spirit, or
it could have been it could have been a guardian spirit. I tend not to think it was an ancestor. I think it was a guardian spirit, whether that was a fae or something that lived in that area, whatever it was trying to keep them safe, which it did. Why it wasn't able to keep everybody safe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hear these experiences where people meet a more than human character that turns out to save them from something or help them, and it doesn't happen to everybody. I can't answer that one. I don't know why.
No, it's one of those mind-boggling questions, isn't it? About guardian people that have experiences of guardian angels, for example, that survive car accidents and seem to survive without a scratch. And they say this angel came and helped them out the car.
That's right. Yes.
So, can you talk about any of the other strange experiences that happened while this painting was being stored?
Oh well, I mean, I'm very limited because it was obviously a long time before I was born.
Yeah.
Um, the general consensus of opinion was sometimes they'd hear music, sometimes they'd get the feeling of a presence, not a bad presence, but like a good mischievous presence.
Okay.
Things would move around sometimes. They'd go to look for something. I'm sure I put that down there, and it turned out to be over there. So
Mm.
it was never bad things. Sometimes it was playful things.
Yeah, it just sounds very fairy-like.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah,
music, what sort of, because they're playing music in the painting by the sounds
yeah,
of it. So
yeah.
what sort of music did they hear?
I mean, nobody ever elucidated on that, but they said it sounded like fairy music, whatever that's supposed to mean.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, that's another thing that I've spoken with people about,
Yes.
this fairy music. And
Oh, really?
yeah, some
Oh,
people,
wow.
because I've heard what I describe as fairy music. I've had a few experiences of that.
Right, right,
And I've spoken to people that have heard. So my last guest, Emma Welsh, who
right,
spoke about seeing the fairies on her windowsill.
right,
Was episode 21.
right,
Mm. And another part of her experience that I released for my patrons was
right.
like a time slip experience that she had
Okay.
when she was a teenager. And in that case, she heard medieval music
Oh, that's interesting.
with various other
Mm,
circumstances that were
mm,
happening at that
mm,
time in that experience.
mm.
Felt that it was very much that it was fairy,
Yes,
coming from fairy. I've spoken to other people that have heard, like fluty music. That's why I was interested
yes,
when you said
yes, yeah.
the fairies playing flutes and things in the picture. Um, I've heard that kind of fluty music as well, and I've heard singing.
Wow.
Yeah, um, sounds like the mischievousness and the music and the things being moved around. I think
Yes,
objects disappearing as well as another thing
yes,
connected with fairies,
yes.
like taking shiny things. Mm.
I've had some experiences with fairies being very, very mischievous around me because I accidentally annoyed them.
Oh, I'd like to hear about
It was with we got some mutual friends involved in this. I won't name them.
that. Mm.
Just simply out of the, politeness and discretion.
Which
Um,
is,
a
mm,
group of us, we all decided to go to St Nectan's Glen
yeah.
in Cornwall,
Mm.
which, if you've ever been, it's an amazing magical place. You can imagine it's come out of Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's obviously got a reputation for being full of the fae, full of
Mhm.
otherworldly creatures and energies. And at one particular part of it, you've got like a rock pool and you've got a waterfall that comes down into it.
Mhm.
And my wife is Irish, so she has a very, very healthy respect naturally for the she or the fae,
Yes.
called. And she's very, very respectful of them. Um, Ireland is a place that I've been to many times and know how seriously the she are taken there, even
Mm.
amongst very religious people that wouldn't ordinarily believe in that. It's like you don't upset the she.
Yeah.
We're in St Nectan's Glen with some mutual friends, and
Mm.
I'm standing near the waterfall. I rolled my trouser legs up and I'm wading around in the water. I'm having a look at everything and I'm thinking, trying to take some photographs, I remember. All of a sudden, there's a clock in the water next to me.
Mm.
Thinking to the bottom is this beautiful, like crystal. I'm thinking, oh, wow, look at that. And I thought, where did that come from? So I'm looking up, did somebody drop it, throw it from somewhere? I couldn't see anyone.
Yeah.
It's okay. So I picked that up and I'm looking at it. And the wife waded across and said, what's that? And I said, oh, it sort of like appeared. She said, you're not going to take that, are you? And I went, why? She said, well, it obviously belongs to the fae. This is like their area. And she said, "You're not going to put it back, aren't you? You're not going to take anything from it." And I went, ha, 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 put it back. And I was thinking, yeah, but it's a nice stone. It's only a little stone. Loads of stuff, not going to mind. I'll just put it in my pocket for a minute and take it back. And then I sort of forgot about it and got in the car with it and came back with it. So we drove all the way back, parked up outside our house, went in. I was like, "Oh, look, oh no, I brought the stone back. I got the stone." And my wife was like, "You should not have done that. You've upset the fae." I went, "Oh, don't be so silly. Of course not. It's only a stone." And she went, "Oh." And then literally within a few hours, I'm sitting in the front room with a clear view of the front door and the path. Doorbell rings. I'm looking.
Oh, right. Okay.
Doorbell rings again.
Yeah.
My wife's calling out, "Who's at the door?" And I said, "Well, no one." And the doorbell goes, ring, 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 ring. And there's like tap, tap, tap on the door.
Yeah.
So I went round to the front door, opened it, looking everywhere, nobody there. And she was like, "Oh, that's weird." So I come back into the kitchen. I'm there for a few minutes. Doorbell rings, 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 rings. Knock, knock, knock. Go to the door, open it, nobody there.
Yeah.
So I go back in the front room and I'm watching, waiting. Doorbell rings again. Like, well, this is odd. So a little bit of time went on, and again the doorbell's ringing. There's a tapping on the door. So we went and looked at the doorbell. It was battery powered. So I said, "Right, might be a fault." She's going, "It's the she, it's the she." I'm like, "No, it's a faulty bell." So I took all the batteries out, disconnected the wire from the bell, went back into the front room. Half an hour later, the doorbell is ringing.
Wow.
It's ringing, and there's a knocking on the door. Yeah. So I went and looked. I'm like, she's going, "You've upset the she." And I'm like, "No, I haven't. It's absolutely fine." And at that point, all the alarms went off in the car. And then the doorbell would keep ringing and the alarms would keep going off in the car. It's lights flashing. It's got a loud siren alarm. It's like, oh my goodness. It just could not stop it. I turned the alarm off. It kept switching itself back on and ringing. Lights flashing, the doorbell ringing. So in the end, my wife said, "Right, I'm taking charge of this. Give me the stone." You idiot. She took the stone. And she built this little fay house in the garden. She puts the stone in, leaves offerings. She wrote them a lovely note saying, "I'm very sorry about my husband. He took your stone." And it worked. All of a sudden, it all stopped.
Wow. That's incredible. I totally connect with the doorbells.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard me talking about that. That's something I've experienced myself.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it. Yeah.
It's very playful, isn't it? But they were also trying to get a message across.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
You should have asked us.
Yes. Well, it got to the point where even I was laughing. It was just when you'd actually disconnected the bell and taken the batteries out, and the bell was still ringing. How, I don't know. It wasn't connected secretly to the mains. It shouldn't have done it. And then there was the tapping on the door as well. You'd hear, and then alarms on the car.
Was it like little taps, or was it knocks?
It was almost like a human knock. It was like
little knocks.
Quite authoritative knock.
Yeah. It's like,
"I'm going to get your attention, human. What do you think you're doing?"
Oh wow. What sort of crystal was it? Do you know?
It was sort of orangey colour.
Right.
My wife knew what kind it was, but I'm sorry, I forgot. But it was like it wasn't a normal kind of the sort of a mainstream crystal.
Right.
You said it was a tourmaline or something? I might be wrong.
Oh, okay. I'm not a huge crystal expert. I mean, I do have into crystals.
Yeah.
But wow. Because fairies and stones, I had my own experience with stones as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, picking up stone. I always ask now, even with like ordinary stones that I find when I'm out, I think, "Oh, that looks interesting. It's got a little face on it."
Yes.
I'll say, "Can I take this home?" Sometimes I get no, or sometimes it's always best to ask permission. The stone might want to be moved somewhere else, so I just have
That's interesting.
feeling that for some reason,
yes.
maybe it's just my strange imagination,
Or your intuition. Why not?
I feel like, okay, well, this stone would rather be nearer to the river or
Yes.
higher up on this rock
Yeah.
or
Yes.
just
Yeah.
path for whatever
Yes.
reason. Um, and I years ago now, it was about 2017, I went to some woods on Dartmoor and
Yes.
I saw,
Wasn't Wistman Woods, was it?
no, this
Oh,
was the different woods that I'd
right.
been to before, um, which not many people know about or go to. I tend to look at the Woodland Trust,
Right.
or where you can look up woodlands, and I think, oh, I've never been there. And it was like one of those occasions where I thought, I've not been to that wood. So I went to this wood, spent a bit of time there doing a bit of meditation, and I was sat by the river. And actually, I'd taken my tuning forks because I
Oh,
wanted to do a bit of tree healing, and I'd
yeah.
been reading about using tuning forks and
Yeah.
connecting to trees. Sat by the river, and on Dartmoor, as you probably know, excuse me,
It's all right.
you quite often get little pieces of quartz in the rivers.
Right. I didn't know that.
Yeah, especially up at like Post Bridge.
Oh, really?
Just quite
Okay.
often see people paddling in the river there by Post
Right.
Bridge. And
Right.
down you see quite little raw pieces of quartz in
Right.
all over Dartmoor. So I found a little piece of quartz, and then there was another shiny stone that I saw, which was very glittery. I suppose it's a piece of granite that had lots of mica in it, the glittery stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And it looked like it had a little face on it.
Oh,
So
wow.
oh, that's lovely. So I asked if I could take this stone home, and I got a yes. And I put it beside my bed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, wasn't the same night, but a couple of nights later,
Yeah.
I was very vivid. I suppose it was a lucid dream where I was flying
Right.
um, above this city in this big park,
Oh,
huge,
wow.
and I could see myself flying towards these roses, and I became like this silver fairy, like the stone.
Right.
And so I saw this myself as this silver fairy
Right.
flying into this rose.
Wow.
And the message I got was that it was Golden Gate Park, which I didn't even know existed at that time. And I looked it up and I thought, oh, there is a Golden Gate Park by not far from the Golden Gate Bridge. This was around November time, coming up through
Right.
November.
Right.
And then I Googled Fairy Door Golden Gate Park. And the first thing that came up was this artist um, called Tony Powell,
Okay.
who or at that time was making fairy doors, and he'd put one in Golden Gate Park,
Oh, really?
a little fairy door with his son,
Wow.
and he'd written a book called The Fairy Door. And
No way.
I thought, oh my
Amazing.
goodness, this isn't a coincidence. This is
Yes. Yes.
something.
Exactly.
And so I sent an email. I said, you'll probably think I'm really strange, but I had a dream
Yeah.
about flying to Golden Gate Park.
Yeah.
And I said, as you've written about fairies, you might understand this. And told him my dream. And I said, and there were some rose bushes and some benches. And I was talking to this guy. I thought maybe it was him that I was talking to in this dream. And he said, well, there are some benches in Golden Gate Park with roses. He said, I'll
Oh,
find them for you, because he was living in San Francisco, and he went and found these benches with these roses.
oh,
Yeah, it was amazing. So
yeah.
all I'm picking up this stone. So yeah, it is for some reason the fairies had taken me on that journey,
Yes. Yeah.
introduced to this person,
Absolutely.
and sort of widened my fairy
Yeah.
circle or knowledge or somehow. Yeah.
Becoming a fairy shaman.
Fairy shaman, yeah.
Well, yeah, it is.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose it is, isn't
Fairy
it?
magic. I love it. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, so that that's the other thing that can happen when you do, I suppose, when you do ask the fairies permission,
Yes, yes,
things,
yes.
you get this, okay, that's a yes, then they'll send us these experiences and maybe, yeah. So what was your learning from that experience?
Um, Probably the most thing is actually listen to my wife because she knows what she's talking about when it comes to the she. You grew up with a she.
Mm,
I was accidentally arrogant. It wasn't on purpose. So
yeah.
I'm more aware, if you like, if you're working with the she, to just really think about what you're doing and
Mm,
try and understand how the Fae may perceive humans. They may see us sort of as naturally rude, might not be over keen on us all the time. So you've got to, I don't know, it's almost like there's an element of energetic respect. You've also, because they're very energetic beings, they're very
mm,
psychic beings, you've got to show respect with all your energies. I know that's really probably a rubbish way of putting it.
mm. No, no, that's I think that's a very good way of succinct way of describing it, really.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's I think they are very good at reading us. They're
Oh yes,
hyper
absolutely.
hypersensitive to us
Yeah,
and our
yes,
energies. And
yes,
um, my experience of it going in with an open heart or a joyful energy, sort of
yes,
like energy.
yes, yes.
There's no point sort of trying to connect with fairies if you're feeling a bit grumpy and
That's right.
angry with the world. Which we all
That's
get.
part of being human. You can't help that sometimes.
No, we can't. We can't be all love and light all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to just settle for being the grey Jedi. You
Yeah.
can't be the white Jedi and the black Sith. The truth is you've got your grey. You're balancing both those energies.
Yes.
Oh my god, I can't believe I just made a Star Wars analogy. How embarrassing.
Oh, I love Star Wars.
Do
Love.
you? That's why it came to mind then.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's so many layers in that. I mean, we won't go into that. The layers of
No.
symbolism in those films are incredible, aren't they?
Yeah,
In so many films, there's all these secret messages, aren't
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
there? Yeah. So, is there anything else you'd like to share? I mean,
Well, we would be here till tea time because I'm a never-ending blarney. I'm sorry, but I've always got a story to tell. Always got something. Maybe it's what you get through being older. You do have to lot. You made a lot of mistakes, and you just that's what I'm interested in. I collect stories. I pay attention to things. There's always something you can say about something. But it's been fantastic talking to you today.
wonderful talking with you, Lauren. And where can people find you? Have you got anywhere that
But
people can connect with you
I'm
online?
going to have a blog up and running by the end of September, but I haven't got a clue what to call it yet. So the safest place to find me is to go onto Twitter. I'll be on Twitter, and the actual Twitter account is at the Avalonians, but you'll find me on there as the Ancients of Avalon.
Ancients of Babylon. Okay.
Because I principally the things we said that was interested in folklore, myth, and magic, and the mysterious. And I research what goes on in this area. I love the southwest of England, stretching up from the edges of Hampshire all the way down to you in fabulous Devon and Cornwall. I
Yeah.
think it's a very, very ancient part of this island, and it's very magical and very mysterious.
Yeah, we haven't even got on to, because you've been to Dartmoor, haven't you? We haven't even got on to talking about any experiences you've had. Dartmoor.
We've had some at Dartmoor, and Exmoor was a peculiar place.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Love to hear about that, but shall we do that another time?
I think we better. I'm just conscious of your time and what you're doing, and we pack so much into this.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lauren. It's been
Thank you.
talking with you. And I hope you just stay on for a couple of minutes afterwards when I finish recording, just to say hi properly. But yeah, thank you for being a great guest, and put your links to your Twitter underneath. This is going to go out probably around November time.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
So
you might even have a link to the blog by then. You never know.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just rubbish at thinking of names. That's all.
It's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now.
All right.
Right. It's the right button.